Hello. Oh, there it is. Hi, guys. So I had enough time to run off stage and eat some chocolate and drink some water, but I'm sure my voice will break again, so I am sorry. So, as you can probably tell, this is the writers' panel for Sunday. Woo. To my left is Full Papers.
Hello.
That's actually a pretty good impression of him. He's probably over there in Britain right now, like, damn that draft. No, this is M.A. Larson. Next we have Cindy Morrow.
Hello, hello.
Meghan McCarthy. And of course, Amy Keating Rogers. So, how are you guys doing?
Good, good. Well, yeah.
Not bad.
I noticed that you're all wearing some shirts today.
We are. We are wearing shirts from We Love Fun, and we will be auctioning the shirts off our backs at the charity auction tomorrow. So if you want one of these,
Tonight.
tomorrow. Or if you're a time traveler, then it's tomorrow. But they'll also come back here.
They're game-worn
Yeah,
jerseys.
so we're gonna sign them, and then you can. They'll be at the auction if you wanna have them.
And I think we should thank
Yes, We Love
Fun.
Fun for
They
generously
donated
donating them. So.
Here, maybe you can stand up so they can all see him, so they can just see him real quick.
Mine says
Stand up.
Daring Do.
You got to stand up so they can see your shirt.
Hello.
Louder.
Oh yeah, yours has got a double side.
Well, so first of all, I want to say that it was awesome yesterday. Again, I mentioned this earlier. The concert that happened last night. Meghan McCarthy. Well, all of them were. I don't know if Amy, you were around, but
I wasn't.
you were out. Oh. But they were all behind the stage, just rocking out to Silva and Alex and the rest of them. And it's one of those moments that's just like, how is this happening? Like, but one of the stories I wanted to tell really quick was when. Did anybody here go to Midwestria? Anybody remember that? No? Well, in Chicago, they had a convention in the middle of September, and M.A. Larson here was there. And I had one of the more surreal moments in this fandom where I was explaining to him the song Discord to the guy who wrote the episodes. And he goes, "Is this song big? Is this a big song?" I said, "Yeah, just a little bit."
Disco. That's all I know. And it's really catchy.
Well, so today I wanted to try and talk about some of the other projects you guys have been working on, because we went into detail about My Little Pony yesterday a bit, and we can go into that as well. I should also mention right off the bat that if you guys have questions for the writers that you didn't get to ask yesterday, or if you just have new questions, etc., there is going to be a line over there. We're going to have plenty of time for Q&A. Make sure that if you're asking a question, of course, that it can't be about anything but Season 6.
Right.
We've
exactly.
established that.
Cannot reveal anything about Season 3, but
Season 3,
6,
no, but
it's fine. I'm not confirming there's a Season 6. I just want to make that very clear right now. All of a sudden on the internet, there's a Season 6.
the power we wield.
Yeah, no.
Season 6 confirmed. Luna has a colony on the moon. No.
Yes.
So anyway, the line will be over there. But first person I wanted to talk to about outside projects was my dear friend here, Mitch Larson. And how many people here are fans of Gravity Falls? How many of you have seen the episode Double Dipper? He wrote it, which a lot of people don't know. And so my question to you is, what is the difference for you between writing for shows like Gravity Falls, or I know you've worked on Kick Butowski, is that correct?
Yep.
And other shows like that, as opposed to writing for Pony? Or is there a difference in your process?
There's a massive difference on every show. Gravity Falls, I wasn't on the staff, but they had a staff, so they would actually have a writer's room. I can't really talk much about it because I only wrote one.
It's the best one, though, right?
Clearly.
Totally.
Made the show. But I did write on Foster's, again, only one episode, but that ran very similarly to Pony, from my experience anyways. because it was Lauren and Rob, so they kind of structured it the same way. I wrote on Symbionic Titan, and that was actually very similar too. Freelance, I'd show up and, we would all sit there and break the story together, just like on Pony. But then Kick Butowski, where I was on staff, that was much more me and all the other writers sitting in a room together, trying to make each other's scripts funnier and failing, or trying to come up with ideas together. So they're all totally different. But Lauren, was on Foster's and Pony, so they were very similar. Gendy came from that same sort of school, I guess. So that ran similarly. So.
Well, I just want to mention that do you remember Paper Jam Dipper from that episode?
Me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Across the hall in the Artist Valley, about to say Artist Valley, in the Artist Alley, they have pins of Paper Jam Dipper.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They're at the wrong convention.
I don't know. I think it might be the right one. They have some Waddles pins too. I need one of those. Well, so Cindy, I know you've also worked on a lot of other animation programs as well.
I have.
Would you care to share with the audience a few of the ones that that come to mind?
I don't really want to give away my age, but oh gosh, a whole bunch. A lot freelance, a lot staff, kind of like MA. My first main career role was as a storyboard artist on Powerpuff Girls, alongside with Amy. And so since then, I've done episodes on, Chowder, Dexter's, Foster's, Billy and Mandy, My Life as a Teenage Robot, Littlest Pet Shop. What else?
She's worked on everything.
Care Bears. A little bit here and there.
That sounds like a lot of it everywhere.
But they never hire me for a second script. I'm joking, kind of.
Megan, what do you have to say about that? Well, of course, My Little Pony isn't your first job in writing either. I mean, and now you're the story editor for the program. But before that, you were a writer on the show. Did you write episodes for any other series that people might know about?
I did. Prior to becoming the story editor, I was on Fish Hooks, which is on Disney Channel. And that was actually very different in that in animation there's outline shows and there's scripted shows, and that was an outline show, so there aren't scripts. And it's very much driven by the board artists. We kind of give a rough outline of what the story should be, and then they run with that and do the dialogue and everything like that. So that was very different. And then I met Lauren because I did a couple episodes of Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. And then I was also on a show called Class of 3000.
We were on that
Big
together.
applause, yes. Oh, yes, we were on that together. Yes, woohoo! We know it. No one else does, but and that was actually Andre Benjamin, who is in Outcast. So one of my more unique experiences was I had to help voice direct Lil Jon. He's the guy that goes, "What? Yeah!" And he was playing Santa Claus. And we had written, not even because we didn't know it was going to be him when we were writing the script, but Santa says, "What?" And he was like, "You put this in here on purpose," so I would say, "What? Yeah!" Whatever his catchphrase was. That's a very strange job. And actually, CeeLo Green, who is on The Voice, he played a DJ on it in an episode, and that was very,
Forgot.
so.
Well, Amy, hi.
Hi.
Well, I know that you're also working right now on Care Bears, but before you, before you worked on Care Bears and before you worked on the episodes you've written for My Little Pony, where was your background in writing?
I started on the Powerpuff Girls, and I spent the beginning of my career at Cartoon Network, and it was this wonderful situation where I was actually in-house, and all of us, Cindy included, we kind of got passed from show to show to show, which was awesome. So I went from Powerpuff Girls to Dexter's Lab to Samurai Jack to Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. I did some Johnny Bravo for their last season. So yeah, I had the opportunity to write on some of the most fantastic shows. And then when I started freelancing, I did some Fairly Odd Parents and Danny Phantom. I did, when you're freelancing, you end up, you're grabbing from everywhere. So I did some Maya and Miguel, I did some Handy Manny, and then I got onto Pony and wrote a whole lot of Pony. And then I started story editing the new version of Care Bears that's on the air now on the Hub.
Well, one thing that you've mentioned in previous conventions is that you did not write, I think it's fair to say this, you did not write any episodes for season 3, but would you be opposed in the future if an opportunity were to arise to work on My Little Pony associated projects to do that at any point?
I would never, I would never be opposed to it. I would love to write on Pony again. Let's, I'll cross our fingers on more seasons, and I would totally love that.
By that time, it will be My Little Moose. Look, there is one. Well, from your experience, it sounds like a lot of you are coming from, Foster's and also from, Powerpuff Girls, both Laura and Faust associated shows. But for your entire careers holistically, what are the most important lessons you've learned in terms of writing for an episode? Like, I know that one thing we discussed, Mitch and I had discussed at one point, was approaching episodes almost with a formula, for example, or with a structure. Are there certain elements like that, like a structure or having, defined themes that you find help you write episodes are important for, say, people out there who are aspiring writers?
I think it's important to not always try to reinvent the wheel. I think I can say we're all Brady Bunch fans, right? Because they have the perfect sitcom formula, storylines. So you just take something like that, or borrow something like that, and you put your characters in and see how they react, and that's where the, you can recognize in some of my episodes, like Ponyville Confidential, there's some Brady Bunch in there, shamelessly, but then you just take your characters, and that's where the spin in the episode comes. But it doesn't really make sense to try to, come up with a brand new structure when it's a sitcom. So you follow the sitcom format, and then you just use characters to create the humor and things like that.
Well, and that's the thing that I found really interesting when we were talking about this at Midwestria, was that you approach My Little Pony, specifically Emily Larson, you approach it like a sitcom. And in your conception of the show, you take two, say, opposite characters, put them together, and because you can almost, in a sense, see that reaction play out, that writes the episode. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and the good thing about that is that it all comes from the characters. You're not trying to force them into some plot. It's, can I say that word?
Now I want you to think back a moment to the sentence you said with that word, and ask yourself if you should have given pause.
Stop.
I wanted to add that I think all characters need to have flaws, because all humans have flaws, and most animals, my dog specifically, has a lot of flaws. But I think that by having flaws, you become relatable, and especially when you're writing for children's television, or originally children's television, you want children to be able to relate to the characters in a show. So we all know, we've all been there, we've all been naughty, but we learn from our mistakes. So I think characters need to have flaws.
Well, I think it's kind of important, though, that, a show like this that was originally intended for, a younger audience has that broader appeal. I think, in a sense, all of society can relate to those kind of universal morals and overcoming personal flaws.
Who always liked the evil characters more than the good characters, right?
I just want to finish that off. It's like this show is not. It's not The Wire. It's like it's not this really complex, intricate, plot-driven thing. It's about the characters. So get a simple storyline and let the characters go. That's my philosophy on it, and that's why I treat it like a sitcom.
Yeah.
Although a Wire Pony version would be pretty cool.
Give it time.
Somebody get on that.
Give it time. Now that it's been said, it's going to happen.
Yeah. I don't know if this is exactly answering a question, but if somebody asked me, like, what is the most important part of what you do, it's not what the characters say. Like, that's actually the thing that I get to last. because once you have them in the right situations, they're going to say what they're supposed to say. Like that's, to me, that's the easy part of writing a script is, well, of course Rarity's going to say this, and I can hear those voices in my head. It's getting that structure, and that's what I, look for when I'm reading other people's scripts that are coming in for the show is there a very clear beginning, middle, and end to this story? Are there cliffhangers at the end of the first and the second act? And getting that map is kind of the most important. Like, if you don't have that, you could have the funniest dialogue in the world, or the most, or it wouldn't be as funny, or it wouldn't be as heartwarming if you haven't told a story in a way that really makes sense and makes you want to see the characters get what they're after. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, I think in a sense, when anybody watches a show, if the show doesn't have some sort of organization, it makes it harder to follow. The dialogue could be brilliant, but if the storyline doesn't have a structure to it. And
you'll enjoy it for that one. You might enjoy it for that one viewing, but if all you got out of it was like a funny gag, not to say that there's not great value in just having something that's wall-to-wall gags, but especially in a 22-minute, you have to have something that people are really invested in, and they won't be if it's not structured in such a way that carries them through.
So what you're saying is we're probably not going to see a pony version of Coffee Talk?
Probably. Maybe a little scene.
Just sit there for 20 minutes dishing to each other.
Yeah.
Well, when you approach Care Bears, because that's what you've been working on, do you approach it similarly from a structuralist approach? Or?
Absolutely. I mean, it's all the same. I do the same kind of meetings that I know Meghan is doing, and what Lauren and Rob did. And the difference is I do it in my dining room, and I take down the big picture in my dining room and put cards up on my wall with painter's tape. But we break it down into 3 acts and make sure that there are those crucial moments at the end. And it's about getting all that structure and that outline set so that you have that, and that's your map, so that when you sit down to write the script, you know what's happening, and then those characters talking is just kind of it's so much easier because you've sat there for hours and hours beating out this story first. So yeah, I follow the same thing that everybody else has been doing.
So I have to ask this question because you seem like the person to ask it. A lot of people in here know about the scandal that that erupted online when a certain member of a certain company implied that there may be a brony-like community that would come up around Care Bears. Mm-hmm. What do you think of the term belly bro?
I honestly think it was meant as a joke. From what I've heard and read, that it was kind of just a offhanded remark of oh yeah, belly bros, blah. But because everything is because you guys take things very, very seriously, and you love
they're all laid back.
The ponies so much. It was it was like, hey, don't step on this. And I totally get that. What do I think of it? I think if it had come naturally out of the fandom, that would have been fine, as bronies came naturally out of the fandom.
Good answer.
Thank you.
Well, okay, I'm going to ask a question that I know a lot of people have sent me emails about to ask, which is, you each written a few episodes of the show, at least, most of you several. Was there an episode you enjoyed writing more than the others? I know it's hard to say this is a favorite episode, but in the process of writing, was there one that you enjoyed?
We'll start down there.
I really enjoyed writing A Friend Indeed, because first of all, I got to write a song, which I love doing, so that was just a blast. And since I, in the story meeting, we said, okay, the whole story point is that Pinkie is trying to get this guy to smile. So I knew what my song was going to be about, and that was fun. I actually came up, well, you guys know this, I came up with an original tune for it, so that was my big struggle, was coming up with the original tune, which was never used, so I struggles for nothing. But then getting to write Pinkie's dialogue and just have fun with her and have her reacting with Cranky Doodle Donkey was just fun because, you know, two opposite characters again, and how do they play? And it was just a blast.
Mine was, I've liked all of them, but definitely the most fun was Party of One. Because I got to have Pinkie Pie talking to like a bag of flour and
Madame LaFleur.
and as I was writing it, I was just like, this is actually happening. This is what I am writing down. What is happening to me? Is this really gonna, you know, are they gonna do it? And they did. So that was really fun, just because I couldn't believe it, and that was my job.
Well, and I can say that, you know, I came into the Brony fandom right around the end, or right before season 2 aired, and I know a lot of people right after season 1, when they were trying to show people that the show was not just for little kids, they showed that episode because it was so unbelievable that a kids show would have Pinkie Pie go that crazy, and of course.
But at the same time, it's so silly. I mean, you can see that it is a little dark, but it's ridiculous and silly, and I know my kids see it and think it's, you know,
it's
they
hilarious.
giggle and think it's really funny.
Oh, it's hilarious.
I'm going to say I think my favorite episode that I wrote, which is not the same thing as the favorite episode that comes out of what I wrote, but my favorite one that I wrote was Read 'em and Weep. Just thought I'd throw a little wrench in there.
Well, you just hinted at, you know, a favorite episode of something that came out of what you wrote.
Because when you're writing, you're at sort of the first steps of the production, and a lot of people have their hands on it after you send it off. And if you're really lucky to work on a show like My Little Pony, it actually improves what you've done, not screws up what you've done. So actually, I was really pleasantly surprised to see how episodes were improved when I saw them than when they left my hands. And do you guys kind of agree?
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and now you have to answer.
Oh,
that.
I have two answers. One is the Return of Harmony, because it was a two-parter, and I'd never written a two-parter of anything. And in the story meeting, Lauren and Rob were sort of like, got really excited about Q, and I'm like, what the hell are you guys talking about? I don't know what that is. So I had to watch, I was going to watch a couple episodes of Next Generation, and I watched the whole, like every single one Delancey's in, like the whole weekend, I just watched Delancey. And then I got to like hear him the whole time I was writing, so that was really fun. And then, what's it called? Super Cider thing.
Super Cider Speedy Squeezy
'Cause
6000. Did I get it right this time?
That song was just like spectacularly fun to write, and those guys, just the smarmy, cocky, like they were really, really fun to write. So, and I don't like, unlike Amy, I don't have any experience writing songs, and I didn't have any idea what I was doing. But because that song has this really weird rhythm and it's all sing-songy, it was really fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I think I told you this before. There was a rhyme in that song, because I thought it was pronounced nonpareil. So there's a rhyme. I rhymed nonpareil with Y, and then I saw the episode, and they say nonpareil. Is that right? And so I was like, is that right? So I looked it up, and we were both wrong. It's nonpareil. So, Canada was wrong. LA was wrong. Don't get English lessons from MLP.
Friendship lessons, yes.
Yes.
Spelling is not magic.
Yeah.
Or not spelling. Pronunciation.
Friendship is not English, apparently. Well, I think it's kind of interesting. We mentioned this yesterday briefly, but when you were writing the episode Return of Harmony, you were basing Discord off of Q, but John Delancey hadn't been cast as that yet.
Right.
So I think it's kind of one of those great confluences, right, where you had written the character to be like that, and then you ended up getting. Because I think everybody made that instant association. It's such a Q-like character.
I was just trying to write him like that voice, and then whoever would perform it hopefully would have that flavor, but then it ended up being him, so it really had that flavor.
I've heard from some of the voice actors that they enjoy voicing villains, that, being able to be evil is a fun change of scenery for them in a sense. Do you guys enjoy writing villains? I mean, of course, you've got, Discord as your notable villain, but like Megan, you wrote Chrysalis, and I know that you, yeah. That's worth an applause, I think. Do you enjoy writing those kinds of iconic villain type characters as opposed to just the general characters as well, or?
Well, I think it kind of goes back to where we were talking about earlier, that every character has flaws. So it's not quite as big of a jump, because not that I'm sitting there thinking Twilight deep down is evil.
Leave that to the fanfic writers.
But yeah, so it's not like a. I don't think there's as big a difference in it. I mean, it's fun, and really it was, for that particular character, it was really more seeing what ended up on the screen visually, because the description that I had was just kind of, wasn't that detailed. And also she was referred to as a pegacorn in that script. And now we do not use the term pegacorn anymore, we use alicorn. But yeah, in the script it says pegacorn. But yeah, seeing what she became and the design for that, I was just like, oh my God, that is, it was really exciting for me to see her translated that way.
I haven't written any evil characters, I don't think. Have
Not
I?
at all?
I don't think my episodes have a lot of evil. I mean, everybody thought Zecora was evil, but they were wrong. So, getting to write, because everybody thought Zecora was evil, all her lines had to kind of indicate that she might be sinister, but that they were misinterpreting everything that she said. But yeah, I haven't gone to the dark side.
Well, and Cindy, you actually did write a villain within a fictional show within a fiction, like as the internet would say, a fictionception. You had, and I'm not going to pronounce it right, Daring Do's nemesis.
Oh, I can't even pronounce it.
Yeah. What made you choose an Aztec character as the villain for that?
Actually, Lauren chose it.
Really? Oh.
She wanted to have some villains that had some existence, I guess, or existence in our realm, I don't know, our human world, I guess, mythology.
It's called Earth.
Earth.
Yeah. Spelled with a U. No.
I like to pick names that I can pronounce.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's been interesting, and this is something I talked about with Lauren yesterday, that she very intentionally intended to have a lot of these mythological characters in the episodes. And so I'm wondering, for the episodes that you wrote, obviously that's an example of that. Was there part of the writing process where you said, okay, we can add more of these references in there? I mean, you get things like Cerberus appearing in It's About Time, only for a few seconds. And the fanfics, I should just say, the fanfic realm was blown wide open with the knowledge that there is a Tartarus in Equestria. just with a passing reference to this entire ancient Greek realm. I mean, is it something where you go back through and in the story writing meeting you say, okay, well, we've got this element here, can we make this a myth?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely pull from existing mythology, which I think is really fun and exciting, that we can have this crossover from mythology that people are familiar with and bring it into a new mythology that we're creating, and that Lauren obviously created. And I know that's where she started from, was pulling things from existing myths. And but yeah, we will definitely, if there's a villain or something, we were going to have a creature in an episode, and we thought we would use this one thing, and actually decided against it because it had human characteristics, like it had a human torso or something, and that was sort of a rule, like there's no people. There's no people
Even
in
if it's
Equestria.
half of one.
Even if it's half of one, that's too much people in Equestria. So there are actually rules within what will it's open in terms of it's not just Greek mythology or Roman mythology. Obviously, this was a Mayan, from a Mayan myth. And so we will pull from anything that we think would be interesting, but we do have a rule of it can't be human.
Well, so in a minute here, we're going to go to question and answer. Again, I want to remind everyone, you can't ask questions about season 3. Season 3 is happening. We know this.
It is. I think it's next weekend.
It
Right?
airs. It
Anybody know,
airs
or?
on the 10th. And I just have to say that I'm very happy that they're going to air both of the season opening episodes
Yes,
at the
because-
same weekend, because that would just be killer.
Yes. It would.
Are you
if
guys
had
excited
wait
to
see
watch
what
that?
happens.
Yeah.
No,
Oh, yeah.
Cindy's
Yeah,
not
absolutely.
excited. She's not interested.
I'm asleep. No, I just don't get the channel. So I have to watch it like 45 minutes after it ends when somebody puts it on YouTube.
You know, and
That's when I'm gonna watch it.
This is actually something that I think is interesting, and I think that, people should know is that, can I get a raise of hands in the audience here? How many people primarily watch My Little Pony Friendship is Magic through digital means, not on television, on the internet?
Good Lord.
Exactly.
Wow.
And I think that it's something that Hasbro and the Hub might want to consider when they're doing their ratings. Is that I can say honestly, I've never seen a broadcasted episode. I've only seen them through iTunes. So yeah. All right. Well, let's get to Q&A.
Hello.
Hello.
I just want to say thank you for all your writing. The writing is definitely my favorite part of the show. It's why I keep coming back, because I don't know what to expect because you guys keep switching it up. And the question is, when you're writing for the characters in the show, does it come easy, or do you have to brainstorm of or do you find it difficult to find out how you can stretch a character to what they can do towards the plot or the story, but still keep their core personality?
I think it depends. If I have quite a few scripts that have certain characters in them, so I've gotten better at writing for them, and I kind of have more of an idea of who they are. But a good example is I wrote Family Appreciation Day, and thank you. However, I would like to give a lot of credit to Amy Rogers, because I kind of struggled with Granny Smith, and she came in and she totally plussed the dialogue because she got it. So sometimes that happens.
I have this special skill of writing old ladies. I don't know why. I was really good at Madame Foster, and so when Cindy was struggling, Lauren said, "Hey, you want to punch up Granny Smith?" And I said, "Yeah." So that was a lot of
great
fun.
teamwork. It was great.
Yeah, it was really good.
Thank you.
I hope we answered.
Hello again.
Hello.
I first want to say that I can tell one of the big reasons that this show works so well is because you, and especially the voice actors, are all just wonderful people. You've been
thank you.
incredibly nice to all of us.
Except Cindy.
And you are just personally great people. My question to you is, I'm kind of getting pieces of it as you're talking. How much of creating each episode is a collaborative project? How much of it is your own work, your own design, and how much of it is drawn from others within the group?
At the very beginning, it's at least on the writing side, it's collaborative in the sense that when we have a premise, we'll have a writers' meeting where there'll be hopefully 3 people in the room, just because that dynamic of 2 people can outvote the other person. So it's very collaborative at that point of working out the story and figuring it out. And with this show, because it's not staffed, everybody's not in the office at the same time, so we don't table. It's called tabling scripts, where you would get a script and start on page 1 and go through and say, can we make this funnier? Is this scene working? It's really once the writer is sent out of that first initial meeting, they're on their own until it comes to the story editor, who will give them feedback and say, maybe try this or whatever, and then they're kind of on their own again. And there's definitely a back and forth, but it's not the type of room where we go through every script together and punch things up. So it's a little different.
And I also want to say, but then it gets passed along to the various other people who plus it. And I want to give a shout out example like Cindy just did. In A Friend Indeed, there's a section where Pinkie says, this check, that check, you know, she goes through her checklist. And when I saw the episode, I thought, did I write that? And that happens a lot to me, and often I look back and I go, oh, I did. I'm funny, yay. But in this one, I was going, gosh, I really don't remember writing that. So I went back and I found in my script, and I said, no, I didn't write that section. And then I found the one that was sent out, and it was in red. So what I think happened is I think Rob Renzetti put it in. And that's his job as story editor. He thought of this funny thing, awesome, he put it in there. And then, but in that script, it didn't say she does this and it's in cute little felt cutouts. Then it got passed on to the storyboard artists, and they added that whole section, making that bit even more magical.
That was Jason Thiessen.
So
That was
it
Jason
gets,
Thiessen,
you know,
yeah.
it just goes along, and you know, we're the start, but it gets
Every step of the way,
Yeah, it gets-
somebody adds something to it that just makes it better than you ever conceived that it would be when you
Right.
started.
And I like the way that Lauren put it in June at BronyCon, which is that she views the show as an organic process, that it grows, that you know, it evolves and it grows and it branches out and then it grows there, and it just almost like it's a living being in a sense. So I think that kind of plays into that. I just realized something though, Amy. I didn't get a chance to talk to you about your elementary school friend.
Oh, I know, but they have, we can, do you want me to talk briefly about my elementary school
I
friend?
think you should talk about your elementary school friend here before we get to the next question. But
Okay.
Thank you, that's a good question.
So, thank you. I have a Kickstarter project that some of you might know about and some of you might not. I did a documentary a couple years ago called Jason Bateman Thinks I'm Dead. And it's about me trying to find Jason Bateman and tell him that I'm not dead, because he thought I was dead twice in my life. Because when I was 11, I had a benign brain tumor. And so after that, he heard about that, he called me and asked if I was dead, and I said no. And then I saw him again when we were 14, and he looked at me like, oh my gosh, you know, just, he went white and said, you know, oh my God, I thought you were dead. And I said, no. So then fast forward 25 years later, I just had this funny thought in my head of, I wonder if Jason still thinks I'm dead. So I decided to make a documentary about it, and I did, and I finished it. But when I edited it, I put all of these images from the internet or from movies he was in or TV shows and all that stuff that I don't have the rights to. And I have 5 songs in there that I also don't have the rights to. And all of that costs money, so I said, okay, I'm gonna forget about this. I'm moving on with my life. But then, thanks to you guys, thanks to the Bronies, people found out about it. You found out about it, and you said, we want to see this. And I said, but I can't show it to you because it's, you know, illegal. So, so I was convinced by Osaka Jack and various other Bronies to start a Kickstarter campaign, so I've done that. And it started on November 1st, and it goes till December 1st, and I need to raise $80,000. So go, there are awesome incentives. I will write you a little ukulele tune. I, you know, will talk to you on Skype. Just various, you know, check it out.
Isn't there a dinner?
There's a dinner. That's for some big money. You get to dine with me. And,
Is there an incentive that says if they pay a certain amount that you'll think they are dead?
yeah, yeah.
So if you donate a certain amount, Amy Keating Rogers will assume that you are dead.
I'll assume you're dead, yes. So check out, if you go to Kickstarter and put in Jason Bateman Thinks I'm Dead, you will land there. You will get to see a silly video of me playing my ukulele and hear all about it once again. But whether you donate $1 or whether you donate $10,000, you know, any amount would be fantastic. That's true. That is true. So, thank you. So that's my story.
Cool. Hello, Victor DeWorker here. How you doing? Okay, so this question here, well, if you will all like to answer, the general expectation from the Brony community is high, or the term is the bar is set high, or even higher, and well, this expectation may be daunting or intimidating to aspiring artists who have yet got their name known or their work even known. And, well, they're pretty much afraid from being ridiculed, criticized, or even compared to other renowned work. So what is your advice to all those who want to create but yet have taken the step forward into the public?
Everybody fails. Don't be afraid to fail. Failing is worse than regretting that you never did anything.
Yeah.
So, every time you get pushed down, you just have to get back up. And it's kind of the way life works. So you'll have a lot of failures and a lot of successes. You just got to keep on going.
Yeah.
A good friend of mine named Lee Tokar once told me something. He said, every time you get a no, throw 2 yeses back. And I think that's a great attitude to have too.
Hi. Oh, all right. I was just wondering, in the show, what determines what non-pony characters can talk? Because, I've noticed that cows can talk while dogs can't.
We talked about this at the New York Comic Con, and I wasn't involved in the very beginning of this, but Jason said with Lauren that the original idea was that, how did he say that? Paws. I think if they had paws, they could, if they don't talk. But some of those things have been altered. Some of the creatures can talk. So he said maybe it's a little bit more of a loosey-goosey rule than we wanted it to be. But I think the stories dictate ultimately if we really felt like, oh, but this creature has to say something. But that was kind of the original rule. So like the cat and the dog and the turtle and all those don't speak, and as far as I know, won't.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi.
Hi.
I finally got to the end of one of these lines. First of all, I'd like to say that thank you for this show, and the story writing is one of the best parts of it. And I'm just curious, do you have a favorite song from this show?
What was it?
Favorite song?
Favorite
Oh.
song?
When's the wrap up?
It's sort of an individual question. Like, do each of you have a personal favorite song?
That we've written, or that we just like
Just like
it? Winter Wrap Up's definitely the one that gets.
Winter wrap up's my favorite.
Is so catchy and gets stuck in my head for sure.
Yeah.
Sorry. No, that's a good song.
Winter Wrap Up. That's our
Okay,
consensus.
our consensus. I'll just.
Thank you.
Hi, my question was sort of going back to the editing and retooling part of story writing. Have you ever had any ideas for a story or episode that just didn't pan out, that never really went anywhere?
Oh yeah. Especially at the premise stage, there were definitely a springboard idea that didn't happen. And sometimes there's even been a whole script where realized we took a wrong turn here somewhere. We need to go back to the drawing board and start over. That certainly, you try to avoid that, and you hope that you get far enough down the road that that's not the case, but it does happen where you think, no, we'll get, by the time we get here, this will all work out, and then you find it doesn't. So writing is rewriting, and you have to get used to that for sure.
Do you have maybe like a specific example of an episode that you wrote that maybe never worked?
I know with Hearts and Hooves that went through a pretty big process. I don't remember like what it was originally and what it became, but it was that one for me. That was the most back and forth that I had as far as notes and changes and how it evolved from one thing to the other.
Right,
For me,
thank you.
Well, and I imagine that when an episode, say, doesn't pan out, that some of the material within the episode can be applied to other upcoming episodes.
Sure,
and
yeah.
some of that, material can be recycled. But I think one thing that's kind of interesting is that there have only been a couple of these little scenes that ended up getting cut. That, like for example, I'm thinking in Luna Eclipsed, you had a scene with Rarity. Emily Larson, you want to just tell them really quick about that?
There was a scene where after the Fluttershy, she goes to Fluttershy's cottage. Twilight takes her to Rarity's to try to soften her image, and Rarity is super excited to be making over a princess, so she makes her pink and frilly and gets rid of all the dramatic black. And She hates it, clearly. And Rarity is like just aghast. She couldn't believe that she was being questioned. But they cut it because it was a fantastic cut because the episode was just way too long. And the scene wasn't necessary to the story. So it was a brilliant cut because that's a lot to cut out of an episode, you know, an entire scene. But you know, I don't. Some of these episodes I don't know how they do them in 22 minutes.
Hi. I have a question for all 5 of you. If you could see a pony version of any popular movie, what would it be and why?
That's good.
I think Lord of the Rings.
This would be totally inappropriate, but I just love Breaking Bad.
I've seen the fan art already.
No, don't make that happen. But yeah, just because I love that show and it'd be funny.
I don't know. Maybe, gosh, I'm giving away my age again. Real Genius or Better Off Dead, maybe. I thought for originally Die Hard, but there's a lot of shooting in that, right?
Yeah.
So.
I have
What's your
absolutely
favorite
no
movie?
idea.
What's your favorite movie?
How about Seabiscuit?
Hot to trot.
You want my answer?
I would like one.
See, when I think about it, to me, it's like if you're going to use the ponies or if you're going to use the characters, you know, in a movie, that it would have to be character driven because, you know, well, they're ponies, so they can't really use objects. So I'm trying to think of a comedic. Animal House.
Yeah.
And I mean, and I just realized that the title would be even appropriate there, you know? Maybe they call it Animal Stable, you know?
Or The Shining with Pinkie Pie.
I was just curious, how long does it actually take you guys to write an episode before you bring it back to the other writers and try to bring the episode to life?
We usually get a week to do the 3 to 5 days to do the outline, and then 2 weeks. 2 weeks for the 2 to 3 weeks for the first draft, and then sort of a week or less for the subsequent drafts. It kind of depends on where you're doing the most heavy lifting, but that's about what it is.
So it usually varies episode to episode usually?
Yeah, I think from premise to polish, I think is 9 weeks total, but you have to remember that's not 9 solid weeks of writing because there's people who have to read it and give notes, and they have time taken out of that schedule as well.
Cool, thanks again.
Sure.
All right, hello there. I have kind of an on-the-spot question, but you can always throw it up on Twitter if you can't think of something right away. It's Final Draft's question. You know what it is.
Are you really going to do that?
I am really going to do that.
Are you really going to do that?
Go
Yes.
for
You're
it.
going to
Bring
steal
it
it
on,
from me?
baby.
You're going to ask my evil question?
I'm uncreative, I'm
Do
sorry.
it.
What would the writers of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic love to see from the Brony community?
It's my evil question I've asked. I call it my evil question because...
Didn't we just see it this weekend?
Yeah.
I didn't think we just saw it. It's amazing.
This is pretty good.
This is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
No, but like if we were to make like something for you to see, like a crossover or like a comic of your OC or something, or like just something that you'd really like the Bronies to make essentially, because your writing has conveyed amazing and brilliant episodes that have changed the lives of hundreds and thousands and hundreds of thousands. So
I wouldn't want to dictate it. I wouldn't.
That's why I call it an evil
I almost
question.
don't want to say what it should be because I feel like I'm creating what I'm creating, and if that inspires somebody else, then that was my contribution, and I want to see what comes out of, I almost don't want to say this is what I want because that's the relationship that I feel like we have is here's this thing that I made, make what you will.
Masterfully dodged.
This ain't my first rodeo. Oh, that? No, yes, do that.
That just recently happened.
So, which episode that you've written was the most challenging for you to write?
I'll go first. Dog and Pony Show, which I know everybody loves, and I'm so glad you all love it because I was sitting there going, "Oh, this is gonna suck." Rarity is awesome, but it was this very delicate balance of her. She was being a pill through the whole thing, and you didn't want her to come off as unlikable. So that, as I was writing her, and it was the first time, because that's an early script, it was the first time I was really writing a lot of dialogue for her. And then the Diamond Dogs, we just had a bear of a time figuring out what they were going to sound like. So I did them like as gangsters at one point, and they said no, and so and then I did them, I'm not even sure what they ended up sounding like because I think it was even changed after I was done, because they were Gollum-esque. Are they Gollum-esque now?
A little bit, yep.
So I think I contributed to the Gollum-esqueness, but I think Rob Renzetti then made them even more. I'd have to sit and compare it, but that one was the biggest struggle for me.
Well, and I just want to point out, you said that you didn't write any villain characters. Those Diamond Dogs.
I guess that's true. I forgot. I guess I'm blocking them out because they were so difficult.
Well, maybe you kind of viewed them as less of like the pure evil type of villain, as more of just antagonists.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mine was definitely Dragon Shy, because that was the first one that I did, and it was early on. It was early on, so there wasn't anything to watch. I think it was like the 6th episode, maybe. So yeah, so there nothing had been animated yet. I didn't have a chance to listen to any voice records or anything if that had even started. So it was just coming into something that was new and hoping like this. And so yeah, it just the first one out, and then once there was more material to look at it.
Once we have other scripts to read, they send them to us, and then it's like, oh, that's what that person did with that character.
And you can incorporate that, like catchphrases or things that the characters somebody created that in one episode earlier, and then you're like, okay, that's what I can have them say later.
I agree. I think the first episode, Griffin, the brush off, was pretty hard to write. I also had a little bit of trouble, as I spoke about before, Family Appreciation Day. I actually loved the way it came out, but when I was writing it, Granny Smith sort of had these peculiar ways of how you had to make this like amazing jam. And I really struggled with trying to think of things that didn't make fun of her, because that was the whole reason why I write the episode, is not to make fun of somebody for, who they are, a little granny. And then Lauren sort of like parted the clouds or the sea or however you say, and said, you know what, it doesn't actually have to make sense. It can be magic. She can just have a way of doing things because that's how it's done.
I would say the Cutie Mark Chronicles, because it's 6 stories plus a wraparound story in 22 minutes, and I would have liked to do 22 minutes on each of those stories, but it was a lot to get into one episode. So just logistically, that was really tough.
Thank you.
Hi, real honor to meet you guys. I was just wondering, not counting any television show or cartoon you've ever been affiliated with, is there any television show or cartoon or anything that you ever wanted to write an episode for, or you think you could do better?
Better.
I wish I could have written for I Love Lucy, but I'm a little young for that. I don't think I could have done it better. I just wish I could have been in the room with those people, because I think that must have been an amazing writer's room to be in.
The Muppets. Not because I don't think I could do it better, but I just think that like that pure creative genius, I just would want to be in the presence of that.
I guess I always wish that I had gotten an opportunity to write on SpongeBob. I don't know why.
I'm going to go back to The Wire. I just can't even imagine what that would feel like to have finished a script of The Wire. I mean, you just have to feel like so cool.
Thanks.
I think you, me, and Full Papers want you to write an episode of Frasier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Frasier is a brilliant show.
Hi there. This is a question primarily for Megan, but the rest of you can answer it. Where was Luna during the Changeling invasion?
I heard what Jason Thiessen said to that when I interviewed him, so I can tell you guys. I don't know if you've heard what he said.
I don't know if well, maybe, go ahead.
Jason, he qualified this. He said this was not canon. He said that she was clearly asleep on the moon. That's what he said. I mean, it's kind of one of those things, though, too.
I'm gonna give a tiny little spoiler. So tiny. We may fill in some gaps, maybe, in the future that will give you a sense of perhaps what she does. It's going to be as vague as possible, but I think I feel like if you are patient, perhaps you will learn more about characters that you like.
Theoretically, of course.
Hello. I have a question with regard to the morals in the show. As you know, putting a moral on the end of a children's cartoon is nothing new, and it's even been parodied in shows like Animaniacs and whatnot, to the point where it feels tacked on in a lot of cases. But with My Little Pony, it really doesn't. So can you tell me more about how the morals factor into the writing process and why it works so well in My Little Pony?
Well, I think a lot of times we try to come at the stories from a place of you want a character, in general, you want a character to grow. And what's a little bit different about this show, it's not a serialized show in that you're not taking the characters on a really big, long journey that gets added to in every episode. They have to be very standalone. But the characters do evolve and change within the episode. Most kind of sitcoms, everything returns to status quo at the end of the episode. And with this, there is a concerted effort that they have to learn something by the end, which I actually think is great. It gives you more to work with. But yeah, that's kind of when we go. Most of the time when we go in, we know they have to learn something at the end.
Yeah, I don't know why it works well in our show versus other shows, and I agree that it does. I don't know. I wish I did, but and sometimes when you're writing it doesn't feel like it's working well. So I'm glad you feel that it does, totally because sometimes you're like, oh boy, here comes the moral. Gotta shoehorn this in.
Yeah. Letter to Celestia, you know. So.
I think it's because not all the time, but more often than not, the moral comes out of breaking the story.
Yeah.
Instead of saying we're going in with this moral, or finishing it and trying to tack one on.
Right.
It comes out of it, so maybe it's integrated better or something.
Okay. Thank you.
First of all, you guys are awesome. Second of all, my question, okay, so one criteria of the show that a lot of fans really appreciate is the subtle but impactful character development that a lot of characters undergo. So, like when Applejack is finally able to accept help from her friends in the Super CD Cider Squeezy episode, or when Fluttershy is finally able to properly become assertive. And my question is, what's your process for coming up with how a character should undergo development, or how the dynamic of characters between each other changes? How do you come up with that?
I imagine that varies episode by episode, doesn't it? I mean, in a sense, you guys have mentioned, like Megan, you were mentioning, and of course your episodes reveal this very clearly, that characters need to have flaws. And that in a sense, maybe the way you develop how they overcome those flaws is to know what their flaw is, and then kind of, put yourself in that situation, right? I mean, I don't know, I mean, it would maybe be how
I feel like there's a theme a little bit in my writing, not just on this show, and I think it's just in my life, of trying to get to the middle. That it's taking a character to the most extreme version of themselves and then trying to help them find their way back to center. Because I kind of think that's what we as human beings are doing. So that's sort of a source, at least, for the characters evolving, is what is their greatest flaw, and how can they be challenged And you can challenge them in lots of different ways based off of that. You know, Fluttershy being shy is that we can go back to that well because there's lots of different ways for that to be expressed in ways she has to be challenged to overcome that flaw. So.
And I think we all read each other's stuff just from a practical standpoint. So if I'm going to do a season 2 episode about Fluttershy, I'll read everything they've written, and maybe something will build off that.
Thanks a lot.
Well, and I think we got time for about 2 or 3 more questions. So.
Hi. A few months ago, there was a official map of Equestria release. I want to ask that if it were entirely up to you, would you limit the story of My Little Pony to just a few locations like Cancelot and Ponyville, or would you expand it much bigger?
I think we're going to be seeing some map expansion next Saturday. I don't think that's a spoiler. They've already released like the first 8 minutes of it. So. But yeah, I think that's what's great. I don't think there's been, I think Jason even said, like, there's not a map that has exact borders because we want to be able to, like, what's over there? If we don't know yet, let's find out.
Kind of part of that organic process as well. I just want to point out that I think Meghan McCarthy wants to spoil things even more than than you guys want her to, but she just can't.
I can't do it. I'm going to keep her so many secrets.
Hi there. My question sort of harkens back 2 questions ago about character development. I was wondering, because the show isn't serialized and you work on it freelance, how do you keep those little nuggets of continuity that we see throughout the show going throughout the episodes? For example, the Sonic Rainboom is an element that has been utilized a couple of times, and there's been a reference to how Rainbow Dash came to actually like reading, and A Friend Indeed that goes back to Read and Weep, and then there was also in Ponyville Confidential when they reference when Big Macintosh ran off with Twilight's Smarty Pants doll. So I was wondering, do you guys actually watch the episodes to see what the other writers have done, or do you communicate with each other, and how does all that work?
Yeah, but that example that you just, we watch them and read them, but that Big Mac Smarty Pants, that was the DHX, the artists did that, so they pay attention too. They add a lot of that stuff in to help us out, you know.
And
we try to do it.
And now Jason has been he's on start to finish of every single episode, so he is just the keeper. He is the encyclopedia of everything. So there will be, you know, if there's a script, he will say, oh, you know what, you should incorporate this from this episode, or oh, you know what, that actually goes against something that happened. So if we're not keeping track of something, he or just other people who've worked on the show from the beginning will find ways to make sure that, you know, we try to have as much continuity as possible.
I just want to say too, like, those guys are legit, DHX.
Yeah,
they really pay attention.
And,
they care, and I think it really comes through. They're so good.
Yeah.
All of them. That would
Yeah.
And Sibsy and Raven are somewhere here. 2 of the storyboard artists, Sibsy and Raven, are at this convention, so if you see them, give them love.
Do we have time for one more?
I think we got time for one last question.
Better be good.
Part of what I like so much about the Super Speedy Cider Squeezy 6000 episode is that it involves a lot of ideas that kind of make it seem like a stage play. For example, besides the first scene, all of it takes place in one location, and it's not even that important of a location. It's just a road leading to Sweet Apple Acres. And I could easily see it be like a stage play for that reason. I was wondering if any of those concepts were going through your head when you were writing it, or if they just kind of came through afterward.
By the way, I'd like to see that. I want to see the play of that.
I would love to see this play.
Do that. Maybe it was because it was based on The Music Man, which was a play. Maybe it's that. It's just inherent to the story. It all takes place right there. You know, there's no reason to go anywhere else. It would be weird to go somewhere else. It's just that's where all the action of the story happens. You know, the action in that episode comes to them. So,
well, in a sense, I mean, you could almost address the machine itself as a scene. I mean, it's such an integral part of the episode, and it's so complex, and it's referenced, and they have to operate it, etc.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, guys, I think a round of applause for the writers again. Amy Keating Rogers, Meghan McCarthy, Sydney Morrow, and M.A. Larson. Thank you.
And don't forget for the charity auction, our We Love Fine tees that we're wearing right now, we're going to sign them, and you can get the shirts off our back.
And also be sure to check out Amy Keating Rogers' Kickstarter for Jason Bateman.
And follow us on Twitter.
Thanks.
And M.A. specifically didn't wear deodorant today, so that his shirt could be extra odorous. Just wanted to get that in.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Just wanted to leave them with something to remember you by.
Well, that went smoother than I thought.
We are wearing shirts from We Love Fine, and we will be auctioning the shirts off our backs at the charity auction tomorrow. So if you want one of these,
Tonight.
tomorrow. Or if you're a time traveler, then it's tomorrow. But you'll actually come back here.
They're game-worn
Yeah,
jerseys.
so we're gonna sign them, and then you can. They'll be at the auction if you want to have them.
And I think we should thank
Yes, We Love Fine for
They
generously
donated
donating them. So.
Here, maybe you can stand up so they can all see him, so they can just see him real quick.
Mine says Daring Do.
You got to stand up so you can see your shirt.
Yeah. Hello.
Louder.
Oh yeah, yours has got a
She's got a double side.
Well, so first of all, I want to say that it was awesome yesterday. Again, I mentioned this earlier. The concert that happened last night. Meghan McCarthy. Well, all of them were. I don't know if Amy, you were around, but
I wasn't.
You were out wrong. But they were all behind the stage just rocking out to Silva and Alex and the rest of them. And it's one of those moments that's just like, how is this happening? But one of the stories I wanted to tell really quick was when, did anybody here go to Midwestria? Anybody remember that? No? Well, in Chicago, they had a convention in the middle of September, and M.A. Larson here was there. And I had one of the more surreal moments in this fandom where I was explaining to him the song Discord to the guy who wrote the episodes. And he goes, "Is this song big? Is this a big song?" I said, "Yeah, just a little bit."
Disco. That's all I know. And it's really catchy.
Well, so today I wanted to try and talk about some of the other projects you guys have been working on, because we went into detail about My Little Pony yesterday a bit, and we can go into that as well. I should also mention right off the bat that if you guys have questions for the writers that you didn't get to ask yesterday, or if you just have new questions, etc., there is going to be a line over there. We're going to have plenty of time for Q&A. Make sure that if you're asking a question, of course, that it can't be about anything but season 6.
Right.
We've
exactly.
established that.
Cannot reveal anything about season 3, but
season 3,
6,
no, but
it's fine. I'm not confirming there's a season 6. I just want to make that very clear right now. All of a sudden on the internet, there's a season 6.
The power we wield.
Yeah, no.
Season 6 confirmed. Luna has a colony on the moon. No. Lou. Oh, there it is. Hi, guys. So I had enough time to run off stage and eat some chocolate and drink some water, but I'm sure my voice will break again, so I am sorry. So, as you can probably tell, this is the writers panel for Sunday. Woo. To my left is Full Papers.
Hello.
That's actually a pretty good impression of him. He's probably over there in Britain right now like, damn that draft. No, this is M.A. Larson. Next we have Cindy Morrow.
Hello, hello.
Meghan McCarthy. And of course, Amy Keating Rogers. So, how are you guys doing?
Good, good.
Well, yeah.
Not bad.
I noticed that you're all wearing some shirts today.
And I'd show up and, we would all sit there and break the story together, just like on Pony. But then Kick-Butowski, where I was on staff, that was much more me and all the other writers sitting in a room together, trying to make each other's scripts funnier and failing, or trying to come up with ideas together. So they're all totally different. But Lauren, was on Foster's and Pony, so they were very similar. Gendy came from that same sort of school, I guess. So that ran similarly. So.
Well, I just want to mention that do you remember Paper Jam Dipper from that episode?
Me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Across the hall in the Artist Valley, about to say Artist Valley, in the Artist Alley, they have pins of Paper Jam.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They're at the wrong convention.
I don't know. I think it might be the right one. They have some Waddles pins too. I need one of those. Well, so Cindy, I know you've also worked on a lot of other animation programs as well.
I have.
Would you care to share with the audience a few of the ones that that come to mind?
I don't really want to give away my age, but oh gosh, a whole bunch. A lot freelance, a lot staff, kind of like MA. My first, yes.
So anyway, the line will be over there. But first person I wanted to talk to about outside projects was my dear friend here, Mitch Larson. And how many people here are fans of Gravity Falls? How many of you have seen the episode Double Dipper? He wrote it, which a lot of people don't know. And so my question to you is, what is the difference for you between writing for shows like Gravity Falls, or I know you've worked on Kick-Butowski, is that correct?
Yep.
And other shows like that, as opposed to writing for Pony? Or is there a difference in your process?
There's a massive difference on every show. Gravity Falls, I wasn't on the staff, but they had a staff, so they would actually have a writer's room. I can't really talk much about it because I only wrote one.
It was the best one though, right?
Clearly.
Totally.
Made the show. But I did write on Foster's, again, only one episode, but that ran very similarly to Pony, from my experience anyways, because it was Lauren and Rob, so they kind of structured it the same way. I wrote on Symbionic Titan, and that was actually very similar too. Freelance.